Why, what if love returned when your heart had already learned to live without it? This story isn't about falling in love. It's about what happens when love comes back, too late to be saved, yet too strong to forget. The quiet street of Odense. It was a quiet morning in Odense, the kind of silence that feels alive, breathing softly between the old houses and cobblestone streets. The sky was pale blue, brushed with soft white clouds drifting like lazy thoughts. A bicycle bell echoed in the distance, and the faint smell of coffee floated through the air. In this small Danish town, life moved slowly. People didn't rush. They walked as if time were something gentle, not something to chase, but something to listen to. And maybe that's why stories like this one could still happen here. On that morning, Anna stood by her cafe window. She was wiping the glass with quiet hands, her eyes following the people passing by, mothers with strollers, students with headphones, an old man feeding the birds. It was the same scene she had watched every morning for years. But today felt different, though she couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the song playing softly on the radio, an old tune in English she didn't quite understand, yet somehow it made her chest tighten. Maybe it was the way autumn sunlight spilled across the wooden floor, like gold dust over forgotten dreams. Anna's cafe was small but full of warmth. Wooden tables, a few books, the smell of cinnamon rolls fresh from the oven. She loved this place, not because it made her money, but because it gave her peace. A quiet kind of peace that didn't ask questions, but peace can sometimes hide the things we don't want to face, and deep inside, Anna carried a silence heavier than any song she'd ever heard. Outside, the church bells rang 9 times, and just like that, the day began, a day that would bring back the one person she had spent years trying to forget. Anna and her little cafe. Anna's cafe sat at the corner of a quiet street, a cozy little place called Solskin, which means sunshine in Danish. But sunshine wasn't really what you felt when you walked in. It was something softer, gentler, like the warmth that comes after rain. Every morning, Anna opened the cafe at 7. She would hum softly as she set out the chairs, wipe the tables, and grind the coffee beans. She didn't need music. The sound of the coffee machine was enough. It hissed and bubbled like an old friend telling stories she already knew. Most of her customers were regulars. The same faces, the same smiles. Mr. Larson, the retired teacher who always ordered black coffee and read the newspaper out loud. Sophie, the art student who spent hours sketching in her notebook. And the couple who came every Sunday just to share a slice of carrot cake in silence. Anna loved watching them. She loved how small rituals made people feel safe, how the smell of coffee could calm a racing mind. But she never joined their conversations. Her English was good, her Danish perfect, yet she spoke little. Words felt heavy, like stones she didn't want to carry anymore. Sometimes, when no one was around, she would write in her notebook. Short English sentences, like whispers to herself. Today I felt calm. The world is quiet, but my heart isn't. Maybe I still miss him. She always closed the notebook quickly, as if someone might see. Outside, the wind brushed against the glass window, carrying the smell of sea salt from the nearby harbor. The day was slow, the way Danish days often are, peaceful on the surface, but filled with small, invisible stories, and somewhere in that stillness, the door of the cafe would soon open, and everything Anna had kept buried would begin to rise again. The stranger with the old guitar. The bell above the cafe door jingled softly, that gentle sound Anna had heard 1,000 times. But this time, it made her look up. A man stepped in, tall and quiet, carrying an old guitar case with faded stickers from cities around Europe. His coat was worn, his hair touched with gray, and his eyes, they carried a tired kind of kindness. He smiled politely, the way strangers do in Denmark, small and respectful. "Coffee, please," he said in slow, careful Danish. His voice had a texture, rough, yet warm, like wood that had weathered too many winters. Anna nodded, her hands steady, but her heart wasn't. There was something strange, familiar, about him. Not his face, exactly, but the way he stood, as if the world had made him wait too long. She made his coffee, placed it on the counter, and for a moment, their eyes met. It lasted less than a breath, but it was enough for a memory to flicker. Something distant, something unspoken. The man sat by the window, placed the guitar beside him, and opened a small notebook. He wrote something, crossed it out, then stared outside. The cafe was quiet except for the soft jazz playing from the old radio. Anna pretended to clean the counter, but she kept glancing at him. The way his fingers brushed the table. The rhythm of his breathing. And when he gently opened his guitar case, her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from recognition. The guitar was old, but she knew that sound. The soft click when the latches opened, the faint smell of wood and dust as he strummed a single note, low, slow, trembling in the air, and something inside her shifted. It wasn't just a sound. It was the beginning of a song she had never heard. Yet her heart already knew how it would end. A song from yesterday. The first note lingered in the air like a breath held too long. It was gentle, uncertain, almost afraid to exist. Then another followed, and another, until the cafe seemed to breathe with the music. Anna froze behind the counter. Her hands stopped moving. The melody was unfamiliar, but every chord felt like something she had once known, like a dream she'd almost remembered. The man didn't sing. He just played, eyes half closed, lost somewhere between yesterday and today. The song wasn't perfect, a few missed strings, a hesitant rhythm, but it carried a kind of truth only time could polish. It was raw, real, quietly heartbreaking. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows. Inside, even the coffee machine seemed to fall silent, as if listening. Mr. Larson had stopped turning his newspaper pages. Sophie had lifted her head from her sketchbook. No one said a word. When the song ended, no one clapped. They just sat there, wrapped in the hush that follows something honest. The man smiled faintly, nodded to himself, and reached for his cup of coffee. Anna's voice came out softer than she expected. That song, what's it called? He looked up, surprised, maybe because she'd spoken at all. It doesn't have a name, he said. I wrote it, years ago. Her throat tightened. She wanted to ask where, when, why, but her body refused to move. He added, after a long pause, it was for someone I never got to play it for. Anna's heart stumbled. Her fingers gripped the counter. And before she could stop herself, she whispered, maybe. She never got to hear it. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a second, both of them seemed to recognize something they'd lost long ago. The silence that followed wasn't empty, that it was heavy, like the weight of an unfinished story finally finding its voice. The letter never sent. That night, after the cafe closed, Anna sat alone by the window. The street outside was empty, only the soft glow of the lamppost and the faint hum of a bicycle passing by. Her hands rested on the counter, but her mind had already drifted backward, to another autumn, another version of herself. She remembered the small apartment she once lived in, years ago. The way she used to wait by the window for someone who promised to come back. The sound of her clock ticking, the cruel rhythm of hope turning into silence, and she remembered the letter. A single sheet of paper, folded twice, still kept inside a box under her bed. She had written it in English, awkward, imperfect sentences that carried everything she couldn't say aloud. I'm proud of you for chasing your dream. But I miss the days you played for me. I miss the person I was when you were near. She had written it for a man who once sat by her window with a guitar. A traveler. A dreamer. Someone who said he'd return when the music stopped hurting, but he never did, and she never sent the letter. Years passed. The ink faded. The memory softened. She built a new life, a cafe, a rhythm, a quiet kind of happiness. But now, the man from the past was sitting just a few meters away, drinking coffee in the same sunlight that once fell through her old window. Could it really be him? The face had changed, time had reshaped it. But the way he tapped his fingers to a rhythm only he could hear, it was the same. Exactly the same. Anna stood up, walked slowly to the shelf, and pulled out an old tin box. She hadn't opened it in years. Inside lay the yellowed letter, still unsent, still waiting. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The words stared back at her, fragile, trembling, alive. Sometimes, silence doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes, it just means waiting for the right song to return. The silence between two hearts. The next morning, the cafe opened as usual. Sunlight through the window, the smell of cinnamon, the sound of slow footsteps. But something had changed. The silence between Anna and the stranger wasn't awkward anymore. It was alive, electric, full of words they both didn't dare to speak. That he came again. Same table by the window, same old guitar. He nodded at her, a quiet greeting, and she smiled, just barely. They didn't need to say much. Some people talk with words, others, with the spaces between them. That morning, he didn't play right away. He just sat, sipping his coffee, watching the steam rise. Then, softly, he asked, "Do you still write letters?" Anna froze. The question felt like a key sliding into a lock that had long been rusted shut. "I used to," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But I stopped when I realized no one was reading them." He smiled, not out of joy, but understanding. Maybe someone was waiting for one. For a long time, neither of them moved. The cafe filled with quiet sounds, the clinking of a spoon, the turning of a page, the world still spinning outside while theirs stood still. Finally, he reached for his guitar. "There's a line I never finished," he said softly. "Maybe you can help me." Anna sat across from him, unsure what to do. The melody began, simple, slow, a heartbeat made of sound. He hummed a few notes, then looked up at her. "Do you remember this?" Her breath caught. The rhythm was faintly familiar, the same tune that used to drift through her window years ago, when life still had corners left unbroken, and in that moment, neither time nor distance mattered. The cafe disappeared, the years fell away. There were only two people, two hearts sitting quietly in the middle of a love that had never been spoken, but never really left. Sometimes, silence is not the absence of sound, that it's the language of everything we were too afraid to say. When love returns too late. That evening, the sky over Odense turned gold, then gray, then quietly blue. The cafe had closed, but Anna and the stranger stayed. No words. Just the low hum of the city breathing outside. That he was the one who finally broke the silence. "I left because I thought love would wait," he said, eyes fixed on his cup. "I thought I could chase music and come back when I was ready. But time doesn't wait for anyone, not even for songs." Anna didn't look at him. She traced her finger along the edge of the table, feeling the grain of the wood, small, imperfect lines, like the ones on her heart. "You were gone for 10 years, she said softly. "At first I waited. Then I stopped. Then I forgot I was waiting." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I wrote to you once," he said. "But I never sent it. I thought, maybe you had moved on." She smiled, not bitterly, but with that gentle sadness of someone who finally understands the ending of her own story. "I wrote to you, too," she whispered. "But I never sent it either." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Two letters that never reached their destination. Two hearts that had loved, but out of rhythm. That he opened his guitar case again, hands trembling slightly. "May I?" Anna nodded. He began to play. This time, the melody was slower, not searching, not unfinished. It was complete. Honest. Heavy. Beautiful. When the last chord faded, tears had already found her cheeks. Not loud, not desperate, just quiet tears for everything they could have been. He reached across the table, brushed his fingers lightly against hers. "If I could go back," she shook her head gently. "No," she said. "You were meant to leave. I was meant to learn how to live without you." And just like that, the song ended, not in sorrow, but in peace. Sometimes love doesn't die. It simply arrives too late to stay, and all that's left is to listen to what could have been. The song she never heard. The next morning, Odense was covered in a soft mist. The streets were quiet again, as if the world had pressed the pause button. Anna unlocked the cafe door, the same way she always did, but when she stepped inside, she felt the difference immediately. The corner table by the window was empty, the guitar was gone. So was he. On the counter, beside her coffee grinder, lay a folded piece of paper and a small flash drive tied with a string. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the note. The handwriting was uneven, as if written in a rush. For the letter you never sent, for the song you never heard, that I finished it, finally. It's yours now. She plugged the flash drive into her small radio. The sound came alive, gentle at first, then blooming into a melody that filled the entire cafe. It was the same song. The one from yesterday. But this time, it had words. His voice, deep, a little cracked, sang softly in English. If love had a clock, I'd wind it back to you. That if silence had a heart, it would sound like you do. Anna stood there, eyes closed, letting every note sink into the years between them. For once, she didn't run from the ache. She let it stay, let it live. When the song ended, she smiled through her tears. Then, quietly, she did something she had never done before. She turned the sign on the door to closed, picked up her notebook, and began to write. Not a letter this time, but lyrics. Her own words. Her own song. Some love stories never get told out loud, but if you listen closely, you can still hear them humming in the quiet. Outside, the church bells rang again, the same 9 chimes as that first morning. But this time, Anna didn't just listen. She sang along. For the first time in her life, she sang for herself. And maybe that's what love really is. Not about holding on, not about forever, but about learning how to let a song finish, even when you still wanted to play. Anna never saw him again. But every morning, when she brewed her first cup of coffee, she pressed play, not on the recording he left her, but on her own life. Because in the end, love doesn't need to return. It just needs to change the way we listen. So if you've ever lost someone, or felt that love came back too late, maybe it wasn't late at all. Maybe it arrived exactly when your heart was ready to hear it. What about you? Is there a song you never heard, still waiting inside you?